We start with some breaking news. The suspect in the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson pleaded not guilty in New York City today. Luigi Mangione was arraigned on an 11-count indictment filed by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. He could see anywhere from 25 years to life in prison if found guilty. Last week, officials announced federal charges against him, including murder and stalking. If he is convicted on those counts, Mangione could receive the death penalty. CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano is live for us in Manhattan this hour. Lilia, you were inside the courtroom when all this happened this morning. Walk us through what you heard and saw there.
That's right, Chanel. Well, what really stayed with me from that hearing was just the force of the attorney representing Mangione. We are talking about Karen Friedman Agnifilo, somebody who, along with her husband, who's also representing P. Diddy, has stood by his side on the last two times that we've seen Mangione in court. Mangione, as you mentioned, pleaded not guilty to those 11 charges. We're still awaiting on a plea for the federal charges, but as we can expect, we can expect that he will plead not guilty to those as well. We're also not very clear on the timeline of which case will take precedence, because the Manhattan DA had said that it's the state charges, the ones where he's accused of first-degree murder, which here in Manhattan is a very rare charge. It's something that's usually reserved for people who kill police officers, officials, witnesses, for serial killers, and in this case, for somebody who's accused of terrorism. So on the federal charges, as you said, he's facing possible a death sentence. Those he's accused of stalking and murder, among other charges. We are awaiting to hear which one is going to take precedent. But what his attorney was saying today in court is, look, they are treating this as a spectacle. She noted the perp walk as something unlike anything she's ever seen before in her more than 30 years of a career, either as a defense attorney or as a prosecutor who worked for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for 25 years. She said, look, they're making a spectacle out of this. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. She took the opportunity to question, why was Mayor Eric Adams there when he was brought to New York and turned over eventually to the FBI? And she mentioned that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, who's facing his own legal challenges, more than anyone understands the importance of the presumption of innocence. And she says, when officials talk about the crimes that my client is accused of, they don't even say alleged. She says that he's not being treated fairly and that she expects a fair trial. She's also asking for expedited discovery of the evidence. The prosecution inside the court said, look, there are piles and piles and piles, an overwhelming amount of evidence, not just the thousands of hours of video, but everything that was obtained when he was arrested in Altoona. And that's something that's also being handled by the NYPD. So they're kind of, asking for some patience. The next hearing on the books for this case is the 21st of February. Now, in the federal courtroom last week, the judge said the next hearing on the federal charges is the 18th of January, but that's a Saturday, so we're waiting on some clarity regarding that. In the meantime, Mangione remains in that federal prison, and we are just trying to figure out how all this coordination and calculation, which the attorney defending him, Agnifilo, said it was highly unusual, and she didn't expect that the FBI would come sweeping in and take him to that federal courtroom last week. How all of that is going to pan out and who's going to take the lead next, we're going to continue reporting on that as we get clarity from both courts.
Okay, Lilia Luciano, thank you. And joining us now with more on this developing story is CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Caroline, great to see you again. I want to start with picking up on something that Lilia had said, talking about what we call a perp walk. The way that we saw Luigi Mangione come in today was quite starkly different than what we saw last week. Talk about why that might be and whether you think maybe he got some advice to show a different side.
Yeah, well, I can't say I'm surprised that Luigi Mangione's defense attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, had some choice words for the prosecutors in this case. I think, when we saw him being taken in Altoona, he did have that outburst, much more staid, much more subdued. Now, after the retention of Agnifilo, I think she likely told him to sort of downplay the situation, because anything he does could be potentially used in court. But I think the bigger issue here is what she was complaining about, which is, this huge fanfare and to do with extraditing, bringing Mangione to New York City, and the way in which both the state and federal prosecutors have really piled on. That's her term here. She said, in all her years of practicing, she's never seen anything like this. The way they're referring to him, apparently they're not using the words alleged when talking about the evidence and sort of presuming his guilt. Those are all really valid points. She's also made the case that this is an issue of double jeopardy with both the federal and state charges. Now, I don't think that will stick. They are different charges, but it is quite rare to see double prosecutions in this instance.
Okay, very interesting. Lots to follow here. Caroline Polisi, thanks so much.